On 26th of August 2025, the Canary published an article by Steve Topple, raising concerns about Jenny Scott's part-time advisory role on the UK Treasury Board. Scott is also a founding partner of Apella Advisors, whose list of past and present clients include Thames Water, a company under scrutiny for environmental breaches and financial problems. The article argued that her positions create a potential conflict of interest, especially as the government considers using public funds to support Thames Water. This raises broader questions about the ethics in public appointments. Advisors with strong financial or professional links to companies under government oversight can damage public trust and cast doubt on decision-making fairness. Cases like this underline the need for clear conflict of interest rules and transparent appointment processes. As I always say, sometimes this signal isn't very clear. This story goes beyond a political appointment. It highlights questions of public trust, decision-making, and the overlap between private money and public power, issues crucial for services like water, energy, and infrastructure. Chancellor Rachel Reeves appointed Jenny Scott, co-founder of Apella Advisors, to a part-time Treasury role. Scott retains links to firms representing Thames Water, the UK's largest water company, under intense scrutiny. Even the possibility of a conflict between her private work and government role can weaken public confidence. The case illustrates a wider challenge. Governments need expert advice, but advisors with private sector ties risk creating a perception of influence. Suspicion alone can undermine trust, which is essential for fair regulation and economic decisions. Ethics and transparency in appointments are non-negotiable. When officials appear to favour private interests, public confidence falls. This is particularly critical in sectors like water, where failures affect millions. The situation also raises broader questions. Who is Jenny Scott? What are her links to Thames Water? And how do lobbying and political donations shape policy? Cases like this show why integrity, accountability, and clear rules are essential for effective governance. Chancellor Reeves appointed Jenny Scott to a part-time Treasury advisory role. While private sector expertise is often valuable, Scott's background makes this appointment controversial. Scott co-founded Apella Advisors, a strategic communications and financial advisory firm. Apella has worked with Thames Water, which faces fines over £120 million, debt around £16.8 billion, and possible special administration. Scott is not a lobbyist for the company, but her ties bring her close to its financial and corporate interests, raising concerns about influence and public perception. The Treasury Board advises on economic and financial matters, including strategy, policy, and public communications. Private sector experience can help with complex issues like infrastructure, debt management, or rescuing struggling companies. Yet combining advisory duties with existing corporate links is sensitive. Even if procedures are followed, appointments touching public money or regulation can appear biased. Critics argue the appointment risks trust in government and raises questions about fairness in economic oversight. Even without direct decision-making power, appearances matter. This case shows the challenges of using private expertise in public roles while maintaining transparency and protecting the public interest. Jenny Scott's appointment is controversial due to her professional connections. She co-founded Apella Advisors, a firm offering strategic communications and financial advice, linking private expertise with public policy. This makes her appealing for government advisory roles, but also raises potential conflicts when her clients are under government scrutiny. Scott has advised major financial institutions and corporations on restructuring, regulation, and investor relations. While such expertise is valuable for government, concerns arise when former clients could be affected by public decisions. A particular focus on her firm's work with Thames Water. Scott does not lobby or make decisions for the company, but the association creates a perception of influence, making her advisory role sensitive. Even with proper procedures and no evidence of wrongdoing, overlapping personal, professional, and public responsibilities can raise ethical questions. Understanding Scott's background frames the risks and considerations connected to her role. Scott's links to Thames Water, the UK's largest water utility serving over 15 million people, highlight the stakes. The company has long faced financial, regulatory, and environmental challenges. Operational problems, including aging infrastructure, service disruptions, and delayed maintenance, have drawn regulatory attention and criticism. Regulated by Ofwat, Thames Water has been urged to improve transparency and accountability. Discussions of special administration, including potential government intervention, are ongoing. Any intervention could reshape finances, affect investors and consumers, and touch areas where advisors like Scott might have influence. Public and political reactions emphasize concerns about conflicts of interest and transparency. Combined financial, regulatory, and environmental pressures show why Scott's appointment is not routine, but one with implications for public trust and governance. Perceptions matter as much as reality in governance. Citizens expect transparency, avoidance of conflicts, and prioritization of the public good. When these expectations appear compromised, trust falls. Scott's advisory roles comes at a sensitive time. Thames Water faces potential government intervention and public scrutiny. While no wrongdoing is evident, the connection raises a perception problem. Even appearances of influence can damage credibility. Advisors are expected to avoid conflicts and anything reasonably perceived as compromising impartiality. Maintaining trust requires more than following procedures. It requires transparency and accountability. Thames Water's challenge put pressure on government action, and advisors' prior private connections naturally prompt questions about whose interests are prioritised. Public reaction from opposition parties to watchdogs has highlighted these risks. The case reflects broader concerns about private influence over public policy. Even lawful appointments can raise doubts if they appear biased. Scott's appointment demonstrates why managing trust, addressing conflicts of interest, and keeping decisions focused on the public good is critical to high-stakes sectors like utilities. Jenny Scott's appointments have drawn attention in Westminster, highlighting the sensitivity of conflicts of interest. Appointments are judged not only on legality but on ethics, and her case has become a focal point in debates about transparency and influence. Opposition parties have expressed concern. Liberal Democrat MP Tim Farron called for a review, citing a clear conflict of interest that could weaken public confidence. Labour backbenchers have raised private worries about perception and reputational risk, showing that scrutiny affects both policy and credibility. The UK Anti-Corruption Coalition emphasises systemic risks, calling for stronger checks on appointments overlapping with corporate interests, especially when public money is involved. Oversight acts as a safeguard against entrenched networks of power. Parliament holds appointments accountable through select committees, ethics panels, and public hearings. The Treasury Committee can summon advisors, review appointments, and question decisions, while Hansard Records allows the public to follow debates and monitor transparency. Even lawful appointments can be questioned if they risk trust, showing how scrutiny maintains accountability and confidence in government. Scott's appointment also raises questions about lobbying, political donations, and influence networks. These practices are legal and regulated, but they can create an impression that access to power depends on money or connections. When advisors have links to companies under government review, the risk of conflicts or perception of them rises. Apella Advisors represents Thames Water, highlighting the tension between expertise and public perception. Even lawful political donations can appear influential, and broader professional networks, advisory roles, board memberships shape how decisions are viewed. Checks exist through legal frameworks, ethics committees, and transparency registers, but disclosure alone is not enough. Scrutiny by parliamentarians, media, and independent bodies is essential to maintain ethical standards and public confidence. This case shows that lobbying, donations, and influence networks carry risks where they intersect with advisory roles, reinforcing the need for oversight and transparency. Scott's appointment also intersects with regulatory and environmental oversight at Thames Water. The utility has faced repeated breaches, including sewage discharges and water quality violations, drawing attention from regulators, environmental groups, and the public. Advisory roles connected to the firm raise concerns about perceived impartiality, even if no interference occurs. Thames Water's operational problems and debt have prompted discussions of special administration, potentially nationalising the company to stabilise services. Regulators such as Ofwat and the Environmental Agency enforce compliance and protect public health, but advisors with ties to the company can affect confidence in these safeguards. Ethically, utilities are expected to operate without harming the environment. Appointments should balance expertise with independence, with oversight from parliamentary committees, auditors, and civil society providing transparency. In high-stake cases like Thames Water, maintaining independence, ethical boundaries, and environmental safeguards is essential to protect public trust and ecological integrity. Public perception is crucial to government legitimacy, especially in high-stakes sectors like utilities. Jenny Scott's appointment drew media attention over transparency, governance, and potential conflicts of interest. Coverage shapes trust, highlighting ethical concerns can raise doubts even when procedures are followed, while emphasizing expertise may reassure some, but leave questions about influence networks unresolved. Social media amplifies these dynamics, enabling real-time debate, fact-checking, and rapid spread of information. Government statements are closely scrutinized. Historical precedent also shapes perception. Past conflicts or regulatory failures influence public judgment. Accurate reporting and transparency are essential for informed assessment and ethical governance. Looking abroad shows ways to manage conflicts of interest and oversight. Sweden and Norway bar advisors from roles in corporate companies under government scrutiny, using independent ethics committees to enforce recusal or dismissal. Finland requires full disclosure and bars individuals whose private interests could affect policy. Germany applies cooling-off periods for executives moving from private to public advisory roles, reducing regulatory capture. By contrast, Italy and Spain show the risks of weak oversight and overlapping interests. For the UK, lessons include combining expertise with independence, enforcing conflict of interest rules, and ensuring rigorous parliamentary or public scrutiny. Recusal policies, ethics panels, and mandatory disclosures are particularly important in high-stakes sectors like utilities. Rules alone are not enough. Transparency and independent review prevent real or perceived conflicts and safeguard the public interest. Scott's appointment shows how public service, private influence, and regulatory oversight intersect. Expertise is valuable, but perceived conflicts can undermine trust. Ongoing disclosure is essential so advisors update roles, investments, or partnerships with information publicly available. Independent ethics review is needed to assess conflicts, enforce recusal, and monitor compliance, ensuring independence from political pressure. Advisors linked to regulated companies should avoid relevant decisions, and cooling-off periods reduce regulatory capture risk while still allowing expertise to inform policy. Media scrutiny, parliamentary oversight, and citizen engagement provide checks and timely, transparent responses, reinforce legitimacy. Governance practices should adapt to emerging risks and influence networks, learning from international examples. Balancing expertise with impartiality, transparency, and accountability is essential. Strong disclosure, independent review, recusal, and public oversight help prevent conflicts from undermining confidence. The Jenny Scott case shows that human judgment and systemic safeguards are both necessary to protect public trust. Clarity in government, advisory roles, and ethics is rarely absolute. Scott's appointment shows how expertise, influence, and vested interests can intersect, complicating public perception and trust. Even when procedures are followed, overlapping networks and financial connections can blur the message that decisions are impartial and serve the public interest. The case highlights a broader challenge: maintaining transparency in governance, conflicts of interest, lobbying influence, and the revolving door between private and public sectors demand ongoing scrutiny. International examples show safeguards can work, but only if enforced consistently and supported by public engagement. Citizens need to question narratives, examine policy motivations, and insist on accountability. Expertise alone is insufficient. It must be combined with integrity and independence. Without these, our ability to judge government decisions is weakened. Ultimately, the story reminds us that signals are not always clear. Evidence must be followed, facts examined, and appearance of impartiality carefully assessed. Vigilance, critical thinking, and scrutiny are essential to holding decision makers accountable and upholding the ethical principles that underpin a functioning government.